Alright, guys. Sorry about the delay. Um, I had like 5 videos and I ended up having to delete all 5 due to technical audio issues. Um, yeah, this year's been sucking as far as content is concerned. Um, but what I want to talk about, and I guess I'm going to kind of sum up a little bit of those videos that won't get uploaded, along with, I guess, other relevant topics. And I want to start by saying I saw a post today with this time last year, the Bulls were 16-8. They played 24 games and were 16-8, and that is considering that Zach was hurt and was playing through it. Pat was hurt and out. Kobe didn't come back until November of last year. Um, Vooch had missed games due to COVID, and as I think around this time is when DeMar started to miss his games, and it just started spreading like wildfire through the Bulls. But think about that. That's 24 total games played last year to 22 games because they're 9-14 this year. So that's 9, 14. No, that's 23. So it's about a game difference, basically. So 23 total games played versus 24. 9-14 versus 16-8. Injuries have been a little middling for the most part, but everybody has been typically healthy. You got some guys that have missed some games, some nagging, lingering injuries, but nothing too concerning like we did last year. But we're losing. And not just losing, we're 5 games under 500. And I'm sitting back looking at this and I'm like, clearly, this team has regressed. Zach hadn't been playing well, and his whole healing with this injury has been nagging. And obviously, Zoe is the one constant that hasn't been there. But up until this point last year, he had played every single game. And the team is different. And this is with Zoe playing with different starting lineups because you started Tony Bradley some, you started Javonte Green, you started Caruso, you did they? I don't think they started Derrick Jones Jr. last year, but they've had to mix and match with parts because guys were going in and out of the lineup. It was ridiculous, and with that, they still won games. This year, you pretty much got everybody, and you can't beat anyone. And that's going to get into this first point, which I had a whole video on this topic. The Bulls and their rather erratic nature of consistency. One week, you could basically beat the Bucks and the Celtics, and that same week, you turn around and lose to the Pacers and Orlando. How, and I get it. The Bulls last year had some errant games where it was like, how did they lose this? For instance, the Houston game. It didn't make any sense how they lost that Houston game. And I think they lost to Portland or Denver last year. I think it was Portland. And you just scratching your head like, how do you lose to these teams? This year, you asking yourself that question, except they were able to beat the Celtics and the Bucks. Now, I care less about those wins because they got more losses and their losses are bad. And we're looking at this team in a vacuum, through the first 23 games. And they've got no consistency on their play. Like, you got 3 days off and you basically got blown the fuck out. Like, you can't say it's rest. Guys were rested. Granted they had that long road trip or that long slew of games. They had a bunch of back to backs and stuff. Like, they had like 3 games at 4 nights or something like that crazy. Like, they had a nice little slate of games. So you got 3 days rest and you can't perform. And so it's like, what's going on? What is going on with this team? Why this team can't perform? Why is this team inconsistent? Clearly, they miss Lonzo. But you can't tell me one player, one quote unquote role player, is the cause of this team sucking like this. Like, consistency wise, he can't be it, right? Well, last year, when he went out, they lost more games than they won. So, he's a big part of what they do. He's a big part of how they play. But I digress. This team is not consistent. One day you see, oh, this team looks like they could be one of the better teams in the league, and the next thing it's like, they should tank. Like, it's mind-boggling. Last year, I could define last year for everybody very simply, right? And if you disagree, put it in the comment section. Last year's Bulls was a team that they worked at the elite category. Like that group of teams that were championship level teams, they weren't in that category. But that very next tier, they were the best team in that next tier, bar none. So what do I mean by that? Were they going to beat Golden State? Were they going to beat the Bucks? Were they going to beat Memphis? Some of these teams. No, they were going to beat them. But the Atlanta Hawks, Denver Nuggets, the Jazz, Dallas, because I'm a Mavs fan, they could beat them teams. Brooklyn. But the teams that are consistently above them, Philly, Miami, could beat them teams. Toronto, they beat them teams. This year, I can't define what this team is. Like last year, we could say, okay, if they had to play a top tier team, they're gonna lose. Fine. Everybody else, they should go in and they should be able to smack them. And you would occasionally get a one-off because 82-game season, you're likely going to drop a game or something. Maybe some guys go out and party a little too hard. Makes sense, okay? We're not worried about that. This year, it's not like they're a championship level team. It's not like, okay, you're the Golden State Warriors, and like Draymond has said, like some games you get up for and others you don't. They just simply did not show up and perform. And now we're finding out that they inked the deal with Billy Donovan before the season started. It just didn't report on it. But it got reported on like a week ago. And it's like, so much for the fire Billy Donovan talk. Right? Now, there's another report that came out from Woj. And Woj talked about this in a way, or the report was stated in a way that was kind of interesting to me. But it was like, pretty much, the Bulls are probably going to put guys available for trade, and they're waiting for Zoe to get back healthy. And I read that, and I was like, that sounds funny. And if you were in my chat, you probably saw my take on it. And a couple other chats I was in, you probably seen my take on it. But if you weren't, basically what I said was, because there was a couple people that asked, it's like, why is that interesting? It was interesting because the way they worded it, I said if you take Lonzo's name out of it and replace it with Steph, LeBron, KD, it reads different. It reads like he's a part of their core future. Like they value him above maybe even Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Vooch, they were mentioning in their report as they could be up for trade. Now we come back, and like I think it was just yesterday, Shams is like, well, it's not. I don't think it was Shams directly. I think Casey Johnson posted it. I could be wrong, but it's like the only untouchables are Zach and DeMar, and it makes you think like, really? So here goes Shams giving you one story, Woj giving you another. Believe what you want. One thing that was consistent is Vooch was tradable. Obviously, this is his last season, so you know he's got a very tradable contract. You know, it's an asset that'll fall off. You know, it'll be worth something. But interesting. Okay, but why keep DeMar and Zach? Why are they untradeable? And I thought about it. It's like, okay, does that imply that Zoe's tradable? But Zoe's hurt, so and there's reports that he isn't like healing as fast as they would like, which some people are gonna sound the alarm. I get it. I'm not worried until we get to mid-January and he's still in the same condition, because that was pretty much the prediction was mid to late January to early February. So if we get to mid-January, he's still like this, okay, we got a problem. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's not tradable anyway. But then that other tweet by, Woj makes it seem like he's a part of like their future. So maybe you think about it like, okay, you keep Zach, Zoe, and DeMar and ship everybody else out. Fair enough. I'd rather ship out DeMar. He's your best player and he's worth more. But that's just me. I'd want to go younger. Which, by the way, even though they don't have their draft pick technically this year, if it's top 4, they keep that pick. So they do have a reason to tank as long as it becomes top 4. But if you tank and you end up with the 5th pick, it goes, and it's like it's a waste of a year. So I still wouldn't tank. It's just not worth it. If you end up with one of the worst records and end up with the top 4 pick, bravo. But outside of that, that's just me. But I digress. Look, this team cannot sustain winning for the reasons I've always said. They're not good at rebounding. They don't run the floor well. They don't shoot. Don't play defense. Those things are going to get you killed. And as far as defense is concerned, Vooch, DeMar, Zach can't stay in front of anybody. When your 3 best players also don't defend, the rest of the team don't defend. My philosophy is you can survive with one guy on your team that don't defend. That's in your lineup. Let me not say on the team. But one guy in your lineup that cannot defend as well as the others. Depending on the position. Some, you're going to get exposed. If you got a center that can't rim protect or something, and you don't have a good point of attack defender, that doesn't mean that they're bad, but they're just not like elite. He's getting crushed. He is going to get crushed. But 9 times out of 10, you can surround a bunch of good defenders with one guy that don't necessarily play well, and you can make it. This team don't have any of that. Like, you now juggling Patrick Williams and Ayo out of lineups for Javonte Caruso, and funny how that Ayo over Zoe talk died very quickly, right? Speaking of Pat, a report came out where he was talking about like he feels like he's a superstar level player and all that other stuff. Okay, he's been having a good string of games, so I'll at least give him the right to talk his shit. But at the same time, he's the 4th fiddle to 3 other monsters. But Lonzo in that same position, basically you could have an argument over who's more impactful between him and Vooch, to be honest. And I think most people probably might lean towards Zoe right now, looking at the record. Would I be wrong for that? The team was winning and was winning very well with Zoe. Without Vooch, they still won. They played all those games from like Golden State on, and yeah, I know they lost to Golden State and I think their Portland game, but they beat everybody else. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Crazy how that works. But here we are. Team that's 9-14 can't really tank because your tanking could be ineffective because, yes, top four protected, but you get fifth pick on and it goes and you tank for what? You don't know when Zoe's coming back, allegedly. And Zach is still hobbled. Like, where is winning? So, what should they do? I've always said this, and I'm going to still stick by this. I think you still build around Zach and Zoe because, honestly, when you go look at the tape, and I think it was Kendall Gill last year that said this during preseason, he's like, yo, that's going to be one of the best backcourts in the league this year. And for all intents and purposes, I agree with him last year. Like, they were hooping. There were games where they were both just torching. Like, you had Zoe shooting it up, you had Zach shooting it up. Zoe and Zach were just killing it. Okay? And they complement each other. And matter of fact, I'll give you one better. Zoe elevated Zach's performance on the court. Because Zach don't want to run point guard and he don't want to sit here and dribble because that's not his game. And really, you need to get Zach in a situation where he's not necessary. When you got Zach dribbling, he's not that good. He holds the ball way too long. The ball sticks with him. He's not a good decision maker. You know, you're better off getting the ball to someone else that can make the decision, and then all he has to do is just shoot or attack. Like, his role needs to be simplified. But you gave him this contract. Put that to the side. I would build around those two because, quite frankly, that's as good as a backcourt as you're going to get. Complementary parts, they work. Like, that's as good as a backcourt as you get. I would then, if you think Paul is still legit, I'd get off DeMar. There's teams that won. Now, the Lakers are starting to win games. So they probably don't want to trade for him. And you're not going to want to take on Westbrook. Even if he's coming off, you're not going to want to do that. Even if his contract falls off. Like, they don't want to pay taxes anyway. So you just put that to the side. You don't want to make that deal. Unless they traded for Anthony Davis, but now he's hooping. So the Lakers are off the table. You would have to find another team out there that may want to do something like that. And that maybe the Hawks, who probably need a veteran in that locker room with all the stuff about Trae Young that's coming out. Yeah, they're not basically. I mean, John Collins, sure, he's hurt right now, but John Collins, I think Hunter's hurt as well, and they're not really running plays, or they basically like paid John Collins to just sit back and do nothing. And we're a team that needs a power forward anyway. I don't see why you wouldn't just swap out DeMar, who gives them another scorer and playmaker and creator and a veteran presence to kind of reel in Trae Young. And we can take John Collins, and if you think Paul's still legit, Paul can play his natural position of 3. You can put John Collins at the 4. And now you only got Zach, who could be an average defender at best. But if you can get it to his ear, convince him to play defense, okay, fine. But you're pushing him to guard the 4th best player and letting John, Zoe, and Paul guard the best players on the court. And then you still got Vooch to deal with in the back. And you can that'll be a little bit better defensively. You're a lot more athletic. It builds you more for the future going forward because you got Zoe, Zach LaVine, who's like 25 and 27 years old. You got Paul, who's like 21, 22, and then John Collins, who's like 24. So your collective age is pretty low. You talking about on average, like age 24 is like what those 4 come out to. And then you got Vooch, and you can sign Vooch for a cheaper deal next year, or you can let him walk and go get somebody else that actually fits the timeline. That's the play I would make. Okay, even if you don't want to trade DeMar to say the Hawks, even if the Hawks don't want him. That's what you got to do. You got to find a very good dual wing small forward, power forward, someone bigger than Paul, because you need someone that can actually get up in there physically, do something. So you need to find somewhere, some way to ship DeMar somewhere to get a very good power forward, one preferably that can shoot and space the floor, and doesn't necessarily need to dribble air out the ball, and plays elite defense. Honestly, and I know this is a long shot, I might give Toronto a call and say, "Hey, man, do y'all want DeMar DeRozan back?" I'll try to get OG Anunoby. Really, I would try to get Pascal, and I would give picks if I could to see if I could take Pascal. But I don't think that. I think Toronto hangs up and says, "Fuck y'all." But OG might be gettable. But if I have to get OG, I need like another complimentary player with them. So that would probably be one of the deals I would look for. You see, that's the kind of style of player you want. Someone that could guard multiple positions, someone that can shoot the ball. Doesn't necessarily need the ball in their hands to be effective, but can, and just an overall impact player. But that's how I would fix this team, at least from the standpoint of the starting lineup. As far as the bench, going back to Atlanta, I don't think they need Bogdanovich. I can't remember what that guy is that they got. I think they drafted him. But he's become a really good shooter. And so you might want to try to, if you were going to make a deal for John Collins, try to see if you can get, Bogdanovich in the deal. And there you go. Now you got another elite shooter, and you compare them with your backcourt who's already elite shooters. Paul, who shoot like 40% from three. And then now you got something. Okay, now you got a little bit of range. You still got, Dragic. You still got Kobe. You can still, develop IO. You're a little bit better. But that's just my take. That's what I think they should do. And it gives you direction. It makes you a lot younger, a lot more athletic, a lot better defensively, be a little bit better on the boards. It'll give John Collins a chance to actually show what he could do. And it'll give him an opportunity to spread his wings. Like, yeah, it's like, who would be, like, even if they did this without Zoe in the starting lineup right now, you're basically saying Zach LaVine, whoever your point guard is, and those two, and they could, take the necessary shots that they need to get. And then you got Vooch as well, but whatever. But the main thing is they probably run the offense through Zach and Vooch. And then those two would just have to get in where they fit in. If you want your shots, you're going to get your shots. So if you're going to be alpha, be alpha. Go take your shots. And when Zoe gets back, Zoe's not going to sit there and dominate the ball. He's going to want to get guys good shots anyway. So this team will really take off when they get Lonzo back for sure. But until then, that's probably your best fix. And I'm sure there's other teams to trade for. I'm not going to go through like all the teams. I don't really care. That's not something I feel like I need to do. But ultimately, that's how you're going to turn this around. You're going to have to make a good deal, a big deal, and you're going to have to get off DeMar. If you, well, you can't trade Zach LaVine right now anyway, I don't think, so it doesn't matter. But you have to trade DeMar, or you'd have to trade Vooch. If you trade Vooch, you have to get another big. You have to. I don't think you're comfortable starting Drummond all year. So you'd have to get another big. But the thing is, Vooch is better. Vooch is probably in the top half of bigs. And maybe you could argue he's top, somewhere between top 8 and top 12. So, and that's of the ones that's playing. Obviously, there's ones like Robert Williams who's not playing because he's been injured, but that's just of the ones playing. Maybe when everybody is healthy, he pushes a little further back. Also depends on how you view Anthony Davis and a couple other players in the league, but either way, I digress. The point is, that's pretty much your best asset expenditure right there is going to be DeMar DeRozan. I think he gets you the most. I think he sets you up for the future. he actually saves you money because John Collins will be getting like 20 or 25 million a year, versus DeMar getting 28. So you save a few million. Gives you probably a little bit more wiggle room to make another deal, and you got a solid foundation to work around. Even if you let Vooch fall off, you can go find somebody, that, let's see, he's making what, 24 million this year, 22 million, somewhere in there. So if we're assuming that comes off and they actually have that plus the difference of the DeMar John Collins thing, you're talking about a $28 million center. I'm pretty sure you could go find a very good center for $28 million. If not 28 million, you can find a good one for 14, 15 that needs a payday, and then you can flip the rest of that money into your bench. Now, you got solid center, hopefully one that rim protects. You got your wings, your flexible wings in Collins and Paul. You got your backcourt of the future. You still got Ayo and Caruso off the bench. Plus, you can spend that money to go get your snipers, your 3-and-D wings that come off the bench and play flexible and yada, yada, yada. That's how I would do that. Okay? And now you're set. You should have enough money to not be over the cap, and you should still be able to make plays if you need to while being flexible and being able to compete in the Eastern Conference. But anyway, that's all I got. I hope y'all have a good one. Peace.